As the night shift began at Croydon Custody Center in September 2020, the air was thick with routine. But for SGT, Matiu Ratana, a dedicated officer just months from retirement, fate had other plans. In a tragic turn, Ratana faced a deadly encounter that would forever shatter the normalcy of his final hours on duty. This respected member of the Metropolitan Police, on the cusp of a well-earned rest, became the victim of a shocking and heartbreaking incident. One evening in September 2020, SGT Matiu Ratana started his shift at the Croydon Custody Center. Little did he and his co-workers know that it would be his last. An inmate was hauled in during the wee hours of the morning, handcuffed and searched by police as part of his arrest. Louis Dezoisa was that individual, and the police had no idea he was armed. In the course of events, Dezoisa shot and killed SGT Ratana after managing to sneak a gun into the detention facility. 3 months separated the married father of one from retirement. The issue of how such a thing could happen lingered for the police force as the trial that followed tried to determine the reasons behind this tragedy. Ratana Mat. Matiu Mat Ratana was put to rest on November 4, 2020. Due to constraints related to the coronavirus, only a small number of the 54-year-old's family, friends, and close co-workers were able to attend the memorial in person, which took place at a chapel. At the service in Shoreham-by-Sea, West Sussex, the long-serving policeman received heartfelt condolences. The veteran of the Metropolitan Police Department was killed in the line of duty just 3 months from retirement. The beautiful bouquets were accompanied with a traditional Maori combat weapon known as a mir, which a tribe leader would pass on to his son. The weapon was provided as a token of respect from the New Zealand police, where the guy was employed from 2003 to 2008. Ratana's companions performed the traditional Maori battle dance, the haka, as a farewell for him after his duty. It was a heartfelt send-off for such a cherished co-worker. Matt, whose mother had moved from Scotland and he was born to a Maori father, grew up observing in New Zealand. Despite coming from a modest background, the young Matt excelled academically, played sports well, and was appointed prefect. He enjoyed watching British TV shows with his younger brother James, including crime series The Professionals from the 1970s and sporting events like the FA Cup final. Matiu, also known as Mat Ratana. The little boy must have been affected by it. Despite traveling to Atlanta State University in the United States on a tennis scholarship with the intention of becoming a player, he ultimately chose to pursue a career in law enforcement. When Matt joined the Mat in 1991, he was in his early 20s and had relocated to London. He also got married at that time, and they had a son together. Based on the testimonies of his colleagues, SGT Ratana was an efficient and diligent law enforcement officer. Ratana has performed a wide range of roles with the Metropolitan Police, including surveillance, working in the Violent Situations Handling Territorial Support Group for which Ratana carried a pistol, and even being sent back to New Zealand on secondment. Ratana was characterized as a natural thief-taker and communicator by a fellow cop. According to his commissioner, he would occasionally stand with his police van's door open while it was moving, saying he was engaging with the public. He had once sprung into a Maori haka to divert the attention of an enraged audience. The community and the entire Metropolitan Police were profoundly affected by Mat Ratana's killing, and there were still many unanswered issues about how and why he was murdered. Murder at the detention facility. SGT Ratana was in command of the Croydon Custody Center when a prisoner was brought in on the evening of September 25, 2020. The suspect, identified as 23-year-old Louis Dezoisa, was taken into custody by PC's Davy and still early in the morning. Dezoisa was brought to the center in handcuffs and placed in the rear of a police van. SGT Ratana took charge of the issue as soon as he entered the detention unit. He was informed that Dezoisa had been captured with bullets discovered in his breast pocket. One of the arresting policemen, PC Davy, was given a metal detector. Ratana instructed him to just wand him down, but don't take the cuffs off. Just before shooting SGT Ratana, Louis Dezoisa. Dezoisa started muttering to PCS Davy and still, please leave at this point, and became non-compliant. Dezoisa shot SGT. Ratana as he was being hauled to his feet by PC Davy, using his hands that were still cuffed behind his back. The projectile entered his heart. 3 shots impacted the cell wall, one hitting the custody sergeant in the leg with a second shot. Following a scuffle, Dezoisa was attacked by PCS Davy and Still, who were attempting to restrain him. A 4th shot was fired at that very moment, striking Dezoisa in the neck. Although paramedics arrived right away, Matiu Ratana's life could not be saved. Louis Dezoisa suffered a stroke as a result of his own self-inflicted injuries. To relieve pressure on his brain, surgeons had to remove a portion of his skull. He was unable to walk or speak for several months. He eventually recovered to some extent, but he is now confined to using a wheelchair and can only speak in brief bursts of syllables. The Crown Prosecution Service determined that he was healthy enough to face murder charges despite his crippling disabilities. The life of Louis Dezoisa was violent. The defendant's attorneys attempted to argue that because he is unable to communicate effectively, he should not be tried, but the judge rejected their argument. On June 6, 2023, the trial got underway, and Louis Dezoisa refuted Matt Ratana's accusation of murder. The incidents that resulted in Louis Dezoisa's detention were presented to the court. On September 25, 2020, at around midnight, he moved out of the apartment he had rented on a farm outside of London. Beneath his left arm, he has an antique Colt pistol tucked in a holster. Because of the outmoded laws of the time, this kind of weaponry was acceptable. It requires bullets of .41 caliber. But Dezoisa had produced his own ammo. He had inserted a bullet into each of the revolver's 6 chambers. In addition, Dezoisa had 7 extra bullets in a black pouch that he carried in his breast pocket. 2 police officers, PC Rich Davy and PC Samantha Still, saw Louis Dezoisa strolling along London Road in Norbury, South London, just after 1:30 a.m. Because of the little brown duffel bag he was carrying, the officers chose to stop and search him. When Dezoisa realized he was going to be searched, he told the authorities he had 3 grams of cannabis on him. After putting him in handcuffs, PC Davy searched him and discovered the bullets. Following this discovery, more searches were conducted. The 2 cops looked through Dezoisa's bag and waistline. Then they frisked his legs, but for some reason they overlooked the revolver in the holster beneath his arm. The police cruiser did not contain a metal detector that the officers may have used to find hidden weapons like guns and knives. Louis Dezoisa was now placed under arrest and driven in the rear of a police vehicle to the Croydon Custody Center. Investigators surmised that while still in handcuffs behind his back, Dezoisa was able to remove the revolver from its holster and place it in his hands during this trip. The custody area's entry lacked a metal detector. Inside the van on the way to the Croydon Custody Suite is Louis Dezoisa. It was revealed exactly how he had moved the rifle. Dezoisa was told by the court that he had hypermobility, which gave him extraordinary flexibility in his joints. It was because of this ability that he was able to remove the revolver from its holster and conceal it behind his back at some point while traveling to the detention facility. After Dezoisa entered the custody suite, SGT Ratana showed up and took control of the prisoner. Ratana informed Dezoisa that more searching would likely be necessary due to the gunshots discovered on his person. That's when he pulled the trigger, killing SGT. Ratana. The court was informed that Dezoisa had been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder (ASD) at the age of 13, despite her academic success and her acquisition of shooting skills as an Army cadet. Nonetheless, he did not always get along well with his father. This was suggested as a potential explanation for what happened on September 25, 2020. His motives for carrying the firearm and discharging it at Ratana remain somewhat unclear, prosecutor Jocelyn Ledward stated in court. Detectives were left wondering why he was strolling the streets near his parents' house in the early hours of the morning with a loaded gun at the time of the murder and the immediate aftermath. In addition to his fascination with guns, ammo, and extreme violence, there is a belief that he went there to confront Channa Dizoisa, his father who was born in Sri Lanka, over domestic abuse convictions and allegations of terror against his son. He was no longer residing at the family home, and the two had a history of tumultuous relationships. His mother Elizabeth and father were shown as devout Roman Catholics who loved to ride their bikes and were involved in their neighborhood. Together, they led kid-focused cycling programs, and in 2007 their ecological consciousness earned them a Green Household Award. Channa Dizoisa was a former electronics engineer who taught yoga, kept bees, and played badminton, known in the community as Dr. Bikey took pride in leaving kids safe and happy with his publicly funded cycling academy and was well known for his free bicycle repair clinics. They gave the impression of being a contented and successful family. But things were completely different behind closed doors. A distinct painting of his father was created by Louis Dizoisa. He called him a criminal, a former drug dealer, and someone who had been dependent on cocaine for 10 years. The defendant, who was now suffering from brain injury, responded to inquiries from the prosecution by using a whiteboard or by giving one-word responses. In response to a question concerning his father, Dizoisa grew passionate, recounting how even the most trivial acts had resulted in beatings. He continued by describing the crazy violence that occurred at the dinner table and the incident in which his father cut another family member with a knife. Dizoisa related an event in which his father struck his kid so severely with a wooden slat that the boy shattered his foot and was arrested for assault. Officers were informed that Channa had previously attacked his kid while on vacation in Sri Lanka, resulting in stitches being needed in the back of his skull. Elizabeth Dizoisa filed for a restraining order against her husband, cutting him off financially, and social workers eventually became involved for 10 years to monitor the children's safety before they reunited. Police were frequently called to the family home in the ensuing years as a result of reports of domestic abuse. The young Dizoisa began to fight back as he grew older. In 2019, he acknowledged in court that he had beaten his father with a metal rod, fighting with him, kicking him off his bike, and setting the bedroom carpet on fire. In response to a question regarding his thoughts on the domestic violence, Louis Dizoisa said, brewing. Louis Dizoisa at the trial, drawn in court. When his son was being bullied at school by classmates who flung chains at him, his father was not in the courtroom to hear the charges against him. Dizoisa was a higher achiever at Catholic John Fisher Secondary School who earned straight A's in his A-levels. He was seen as an unsportsy, very clever maths geek who found it difficult to make friends. According to a professional psychologist, Dizoisa's Asperger's syndrome diagnosis was suggested by his limited interests, rigid style of thinking, and social interaction issues. Others, especially his old classmates on the other hand, paint a picture of a more haughty young man. A gun addiction. He wrote, "Do what you must, for I have already won," in his school yearbook. Past students remember a very disturbed young man who had a fascination with guns, which resulted in him receiving disciplinary action for carrying an air gun on school property. In the official Leavers book, one of his classmates made the joke, he was good with weapons. Dizoisa boasted to others about how frequently he accessed the dark web, and one of his friends recalled how he used school computers to design weapons. He liked to view recordings of murders and boast that he could see hitmen and guns for sale, videos from ISIS and similar sources. He was viewing these films in the corner while other children were playing outside or working on their schoolwork. He was spotted laughing and wielding a broadsword from medieval times in 2017 while he was a mechanical engineering student at University College London. Dizoisa was referred to the Home Office's Prevent De-radicalization program a year later in 2018, 2 years before to Matt Ratana's murder, due to concerns that he held extreme Islamist and right-wing views. He was deemed to be posing no threat nevertheless. He left school after a year, but he managed to find employment as a data analyst with Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs in Croydon. Colleagues there complimented him on his ability to develop computer programs from scratch. Unbeknownst to others, Dizoisa had started using more and more marijuana. He would frequently say that his usual day consisted of weed, oven, gym, food, and bath. Dissecting moved out of the family house and took up residence on a farm in Banstead, Surrey, 8 miles away, hoping to get away from his father's growing violent and antagonistic tendencies and find some alone time. Now that he was free from his controlling father, he surreptitiously bought an old handgun from an internet auction. He didn't need a firearms license because the gun was deemed outdated and out of style, and the .41 caliber ammo was no longer accessible. However, he quickly went about making his own ammo for the gun by buying primers, casings, and lead balls. He tested the gun at the farm to ensure it was operational. Minutes from his parents' house, he was carrying a bag of cannabis, extra ammunition, and a fully loaded pistol when he was taken into custody. The night he was arrested, he never disclosed to the police his intentions. However, it was obvious that he meant to exact revenge on his father. Detectives searched the Dissecting's PS 600,000 home the morning after the incident, while the couple sat tied on the sofa. They could see who was at blame. They said that their son had been failed by the police. They think that SGT, Matt Ratana's death, was caused by a string of errors made by the police, and that his family ought to pursue compensation from the police department, rather than from their son. Officers confiscated a sketch by Dissecting depicting 2 officers and gun when he was recovering in the hospital following the incident. He had shot himself in the neck and was healing when he drew the picture. He drew a picture of what happened because he's been very, very anxious about the police presence, and police took it, his mother Elizabeth Dissecting stated. She said, he showed it to his consultant. The consultant surmised that Louis's poor sleep quality was caused by something that was triggered by the police presence. She continued by saying that the police were in charge of his family's visits, letters, and phone calls to their imprisoned son. She continued, saying, I'm quite concerned that the IOPC hasn't followed up on how the police have conducted the investigation. She added that her son should have been escorted by a suitable adult at the detention facility. Dissecting expressed his sadness to the jury during the trial about the officer's passing. He informed the court that he had no intention of killing or seriously hurting SGT. Ratana. The jury rejected his claim of diminished responsibility, notwithstanding his claims to the contrary. Louis Dissecting was found guilty on June 23, 2023, of shooting Met Police Sergeant Matt Ratana in the chest and killing him. The Northampton Crown Court jury found that he had behaved on purpose. The sentencing hearing is set for July 27th. The Independent Office for Police Conduct IOPC concluded that there is no need for PC's Rich Davey and Samantha Still to be disciplined. After its investigation was completed in June 2021, the IOPC said it had recommended and the NPCC had accepted that the National Police Chiefs Council NPCC take into consideration installing handheld metal detectors in all response vehicles and vehicles used to transport detained individuals. After the IOPC revealed its conclusions and said that neither officer would be prosecuted for misconduct, Dissecting's parents filed a complaint. Louis was humdrum and quartered by this press release, stated Mrs. Dissecting. As Louis family, we want justice, but more than anything, we want the truth, both the reconciliation and the truth. The public does not believe that the cops committed a crime. We concluded that neither their actions nor omissions breached the police standards of professional behavior, stated Amanda Rowe, Director of Operations for the IOPC, despite the fact that the officers searching Dissecting did not strictly follow Met Police Service training, which requires that the torso be divided into quarters and that each quarter be searched from the top down, both back and front. However, we recommended that one officer receive additional training regarding detainee transportation and body searches, and that the second officer receive training regarding body searches and their assistance to the first officer. Deputy Assistant Commissioner Stuart Cundy of the Met Police stated Louis Dissecting always remained in handcuffs once the officers searched him on the street. The handcuffs were moved from a front position to a back position when the ammunition was discovered on him. When the gunfire began, he did commend their bravery. He stated, I believe the 2 arresting officers jumped on Dissecting out of instinct to try and wrestle the firearm away and get it off him. He continued by saying that going forward, All Metropolitan Police frontline officers would have metal detectors installed in their vehicles. D'Zoysa was apprehended by police without a metal detector in their vehicle. Cundy added that the force was testing a body scanner akin to one found in airports for use in detention cabins. James, the younger brother of Matt Ratana, is still living in New Zealand. He had a criminal past and thus was accustomed to the workings of a police station. It is hard for him to think that the pistol was undetected by London police. He stated, "What they've told us is that they've changed the protocols and all these kinds of things. When you enter through the door now, there are metal detectors there. I think, well, the police stations here have those, they have them for many years. They would have discovered what he had on him if he had been in New Zealand, for sure. Since I have experienced such circumstance, I have visited police stations where the suspect was searched. It wasn't completed correctly.